are meant to call from out of the past stories, strange and weird.
Tales of mystery and terror by radio's masters of the macabre.
Stories of the supernatural, the supernormal, dramatizing the fantasy, the mystery, the unknown. We tell you this frankly, so if you wish to avoid the excitement and tension of these imaginary plays, we urge you calmly, sincerely, to turn off your radio now.
This is The Horror. Welcome back. Thanks for joining me this week. We'll hear from Nightfall, production of the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation that aired from July of 1980 to June of 1983, produced 107 episodes. 30 of those aired over NPR stations in the United States from October of 1981 to June of 1982. Our episode today came from those broadcasts. The story's titled Mkara. It first aired in Canada on April 3rd, 1981. This recording is from January 22nd, 1982. Here's Nightfall.
From National Public Radio, NPR Playhouse presents Nightfall.
In the dream, you are falling, lost in the listening distance, as dark locks in. Nightfall. Good evening. Tonight's story takes us to the interior of Ethiopia, where nowadays they have bounties on virtually all wildlife, except for the human soul. The play, based on the Michael McCabe short story, and dramatized especially for this series by Graham Haley, is called Mkara. Yes, I've got you in the sights, you great beauty. Now. Come on, yes, come on. Oh, magnificent. You ever see a bull elephant so huge? Yes, the longest tusks I've ever seen. What a price they'll bring in London. Oh, my God. The elephant's eyes, they're all white, like ivory. They're like frozen moons. Ethiopia, the mountains of the Arusi country, 1943, almost 5 years after the great bull elephant was shot. Charles Woodley is living out what he believes to be the last months of his life, devoting his days to science, to the study of the Abyssinian bushbuck.
Sylvia, I'm a doctor, not a psychologist.
Psychologist?
Don't look at me like that. There's nothing wrong with head shrinkers and no stigma attached to consulting them. I just don't belong to their ranks, that's all.
I thought about it a long time before I suggested you come out all this way.
Oh, no trouble. In fact, I needed a touch of travel. What else can a man do when his dearest friend writes him saying, Charles believes he's dying and won't see a doctor?
It was so good of you to come, Ray.
Perhaps I feel a sense of doom, too. But I haven't come all these miles to talk about my problems.
I do hope they disappear.
Sylvia, your man believes his number's up. There's nothing a doctor, any doctor, can put his finger on.
Are you quite certain?
Yes. And I've never seen a man so convinced he's departing this life.
You're the only one who can help him, Ray.
No. The only one who can help Charles is Charles.
He lies in his room for hours, rarely goes out for a walk, hardly eats anything. So sad, so resigned. Between us, we must do something.
Do you think this old doctor, so full of shrapnel that he rattles, can perform miracles?
Oh, Ray, Oh, dear, I've talked so much about Charles. I haven't asked about your own health.
My number's only a matter of time as well. Scrap metal from the war. But I've had, as they say, a long life and a happy one.
Oh, Ray, I feel terrible.
Don't. Just wanted to warn you, lest I keel over suddenly. Always believed in being prepared.
I hope you have many, many years yet.
Taking just one pleasant day at a time, perhaps I shall.
More tea?
Thank you, no.
Did Charles tell you what happened in Tanganyika 5 years ago?
Yes, but in barest outline. He was so busy with those blasted deer.
They're his passion, and very rare. The bushbuck.
Rare. So's his disease. Especially among non-superstitious Anglo-Saxons.
Disease?
It's called opting out.
Please, Ray.
Opting out of life.
Oh, Ray, don't be angry.
I am angry. Can't help it. Do you know what I said to Charles? Die, damn it. See if I care.
Ray.
Give me your life. I need it, I said. I'm afraid we're not allowed to switch bodies.
Please don't say such things.
I'm sorry, Sylvia. We doctors are a rough bunch sometimes.
Life is so terribly fragile.
Charles told me about someone called Mkara.
Mkara. And the other fellow, the brother, Abdullah Mkula. He's the terrible one.
You've gone pale. You believe them? All this nonsense about a curse?
Yes. Charles made me believe it.
It's suicide. He's wishing himself to death.
Charles has lived in Africa for 30 years. He knows what the natives' magic can do. He believes in Mkara's curse.
Mkara's curse, indeed.
There's only 3 weeks to go. 3 weeks to the day.
Charles Woodley had been cursed 5 years before, in 1938. The day he shot the great bull elephant, there was feasting and music and dancing.
For my trackers and bearers, every man jack 50 bob apiece. And 2 days' holiday for them to be drunk in. Sylvia, we need a bull with tusks that long every month. Then we'd really be in business.
This huge fellow must set some sort of record.
Yeah, damn near it. Do you know what that ivory's worth?
A lovely holiday in Europe. Paris, Rome.
Holiday in Europe.
Speak bad words of humanity.
Yeah, what's all this, Kobani? Why aren't you drunk like the rest?
There is a man from Moshi.
Yes, who is he?
With fire in his eyes.
Well, perhaps he's drunk.
He talks of a great bull elephant.
Yeah, all right, Kobani, bring him here.
Yes, one. But he speak bad words of you.
You look tired, Sylvia. Why don't you lie down?
Oh, it's been such a happy evening. I hate to leave.
I was just thinking, we'll get the rest of the ivory into Dar es Salaam within a week. I'm loath to let this new stuff go by train.
Afraid of theft.
Well, yes. Oh, what glorious ivory it is.
I just wish we could take the tusks but leave the elephants alive. If only they could grow another set of teeth like children.
Oh, you're funny and gentle. And I love you, my darling.
This is Mkara.
Yes, well, if it's a job that you want, I shan't be hiring any more beaters.
I am Mkara.
Yes, so I gather. Oh, wait a minute. Mkara? You anything to do with Abdullah?
I'm brother to Abdullah.
Oh, are you?
Charles.
Yes, well, for a start, you can tell your brother that he's a son of the lowest hyena.
Please, Charles.
And if he ever comes crawling around here with his bloody witch doctor mumbo-jumbo...
Oh, Charles, it's late.
Wait for me in the tent, Sylvia. You, Mkara, you tell your brother Abdullah that I'll have his guts for garters if he shows his face around here again. Now, what do you want? I'm in the midst of a feast.
I wish to speak alone with the man who insults my brother. The man who kills the great bull.
You better go, Sylvia. I'll talk to the old boy. He's steamed up about something. I'll join you in a couple of minutes.
Good.
Kubani's wives are doing a naughty dance at midnight fertility rites or something.
Now, that I do not need.
Here, you run along.
You're sure you're all right? Mkara looks awful.
Oh, Kubani's ready. I've only to shout.
Well, I'll go then. But take care, my love. Now, take care.
Yes, I shall. Now, Mkara, you old sinner, what precisely do you want?
You have insulted my family.
Yes, that's right. They're all useless. Well, come on, what do you want?
Today you killed the bull of El Haza.
The bull of what?
The great bull of El Haza, who came down the river to provide for my people. You killed the god of all the elephants, our god, and I am bound to give you his curse.
Well, have you finished? Now, if you'll excuse me.
In the name of the bull of El Haza.
Don't you threaten me. I'll have your guts, too. That elephant had good ivory. It was only a beast. Since when has the god of the Mulussa been an elephant, anyway?
Since our prince told us many generations ago. Since the great bull floated down the Nile from El Haza on a boat of reeds.
Oh, the great bull, as you call it, has never been farther than the Moshi district in its entire life.
For the death of the great bull, the white man is to die.
You get out of my camp. At dawn, I'll send out a dozen men. If they find you, they'll bring you back dead.
The white man thinks he is so powerful that my ancestors cannot harm him.
I do not believe in dead elephants or dead ancestors.
Then why do I see fear in the white man's eyes?
You get away from me, or I'll kill you.
Yes. Fear shine in the white man's eyes. Fear shine brighter than the frozen moon. You are cursed, white man. You will die bad death 5 years from this night. You will die.
Could I get you some whiskey, Ray?
In a moment, thanks. This nonsense about the curse happened in, 38?
Yes, June 17th. Charles told me about it next day. Said it was a lot of rubbish, but I knew he was frightened.
Mkara could have known the war was coming. Didn't take his curse to kill a man, necessarily.
What are you thinking?
He was counting on Charles being called up, perhaps, and killed in the war.
I've no idea. For the first 2 years, we merely joked about Mkara's curse, but it haunted us always.
Now it's the 5th year, 43.
28th of May.
Get the 17th of June over with, Sylvia. Then you can feel free again.
And if nothing happens?
Nothing will happen.
Ray, do you know why we came up here, into the mountains?
No, I don't. Unless it was Charles' scientific deer hunt.
He's always had this thing about studying the bushbuck, and there are some rare ones up here. But the main reason was the elephants.
The absence of?
Yes. It's obviously not elephant country.
Sylvia, if you do have some whiskey, it would go down rather well.
Of course. I remembered you had a preference for Scotch.
At one point, the curse was lifted, Charles told me.
Yes. All the witch doctors had a grand smelling out. A great washing and forgiveness ceremony. Charles said he had cursed Mkara too, you see, in retaliation.
Oh?
Yes, not that it counted for much. Here's your drink.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers. Sylvia, what takes place at a smelling out?
The witch doctors pool their powers, in effect, and trade forgiveness.
An ingenious way of covering up. Most of their victims would in fact be alive and well after the curse had fallen due.
I suppose so. They saved face.
Damn clever move.
Perhaps the witch doctors could sense the ones who would stubbornly refuse to die.
And the cleansing ceremony would make their powers seem even more awesome.
Yes. To curse was one thing, but to save someone from a curse was even more astonishing.
Where does Mkara's brother Abdullah fit into all this?
Well, at the ceremony, Mkara removed his curse from Charles. The Bwana Woodley would be allowed to live, he said, but he must never again hunt the sacred ones, the elephants.
They do take their animal gods seriously, don't they?
There was a lot of bone shaking and wailing, and then the curse lifting was announced again. And then It happened.
Charles was transformed.
No. Mkara fell down dead.
What?
Mkara dropped dead. I don't know what killed him.
And Abdullah?
Well, his brother went hysterical, almost mad, and cursed Charles once more.
Because of Mkara's mysterious death?
Oh, perhaps, but who can be sure of anything here? Charles tried to get a German doctor to look at Mkara, but his relatives had buried him at once and wouldn't say where. Local custom.
So, in effect, the curse on Charles was never lifted.
Yes. And he's deteriorated steadily ever since.
Yes, I'm afraid I have rather fallen apart. You're quite right, my dear.
Oh, Charles.
Well, Charlie, it's about time you got up. Take me out to see your bushbuck today?
Yeah, well, I'd better, hadn't I? You've come such a long way.
That's more like it. We'll get some fresh air.
Yeah, Ray. Could you stay till June 17th? I'd like you to take Sylvia back to England, if you would.
Charles, will you stop being such a fool? Leave by all means. But the three of us together. Now.
Charles refused to leave his mountain retreat. He was resigned to what he felt was his fate. There were, though, moments when he seemed happily absorbed, almost able to forget.
Ah, there, a female. Like the kudu, do you see?
Yes.
Yes, we're lucky. Bushbucks are usually well hidden in the daytime.
She's splendid.
Usual markings. You see the stiff hairs running along the neck and over the withers?
Beautiful beast. Now I understand your devotion to the bushbuck and to these mountains.
Oh, Ray, what is it?
Nothing, really. Just the shrapnel settling.
We'll rest a bit before we head back. Oh, a couple of crocs, aren't we?
No. One old croc. You're looking at him. And one perfectly healthy man. Yourself.
I only wish it was so.
Charlie, leave at once. Go down to South Africa. I'll stay on and look after things here for a bit.
No, Ray, I'm not leaving.
But you've a son in Dar es Salaam. You've no right.
I shan't see Clive again.
Take Sylvia to Dar. Then the three of you could go on to South Africa from there.
But you're forgetting
you can
that
get down the mountain easily in the next few days. The rains aren't due for...
It's the 10th of June. I've only 7 more days to live.
There is nothing wrong with you. What in hell do you think could kill you on the 17th of June?
An elephant.
Elephant? There are no elephants here. There haven't been for hundreds of years.
But there will be on the 17th of June.
The night of June 12th, Sylvia Woodley went to bed early, complaining of a headache. Her husband and Ray Park sat up late, talking.
Charlie, can a curse be transferred?
What?
Can a curse be taken on by someone else?
Taken on?
Well, I was thinking. I'm an awful mess. From my tangle with Rommel in the desert. More scrap metal in my body than there was in the tank I blew up with.
Whatever are you getting at?
Look, I'm not one for witch doctor hocus pocus, as you well know.
You are rather hard to convince.
But I've seen members of the darker races abandon themselves to death.
Oh, yeah.
Now I see a white man, bent on doing the same. I see death written all over your face, Charles. I can see it in your eyes.
I've convinced you, then. There's no more calling me a fool.
Hand Mkara's curse over to me, Charlie. I'll take it on. And you leave tomorrow. Go to Dar, then to South Africa.
Do you think that I'd put this curse on your head, even if I could? It'd be murder.
And who's to judge what is or is not murder? Perhaps You killed Mkara.
A mere coincidence. Well, maybe the death wish was put into him by magic. I don't know.
Give your death wish to me.
No.
Do as I say.
You don't know. You can't understand.
Can't I? There's an old story about a man who was doomed to see a face in the mirror behind him whenever he shaved, or merely looked into a reflecting window. There was the mysterious other face, always. But he rid himself of it when he told another man about it. Then the face haunted that fellow, and so it went the rounds. Whenever the story was told, the face went and peered over the shoulder of another, until at last it reached the doctor. But he, being a deeply religious man, was reluctant to pass on the haunting face, which was in itself a curse. So the doctor told a blind man. Now, the blind man was unable to see into mirrors or window glass or reflecting pools. And so the curse was broken. Give the damn curse to me, Charlie. I'm dying anyway. I'm the blind man.
Ray, it couldn't just be switched. How could it be?
Say what you said to Mkara when you cursed him.
Ray, for God's sake, have you gone mad?
Do what I tell you, Charles, or I'll kill you myself.
On the 15th of June, 1943, Charles and Sylvia Woodley left their Ethiopian mountain retreat, leaving it in the charge of Ray Park. Sylvia knew nothing about the passing on of Mkara's curse. She thought Charles had, by a supreme act of will, decided to fight. They'd flown to Uganda. On the night of June 17th, were in Masindi. Charles was in very high spirits.
Here we are, love. 3 more days to Dar es Salaam. And then Clive, God bless him, and with luck, South Africa. Oh, a new life.
Oh, Charles, let's drink to that new life. Charles?
Oh, my chest. Oh, like a vice. Oh. Here,
Charles! Charles!
Run! The white bull is coming!
Kabali, what is it?
The great elephant! The Kelp of Alhaza! Run!
God! He's enormous!
Run, Bwana, run!
You go. Without me. Go on, Kabani.
But Bwana...
Go! Running away would not save me, Kabani. Go, now!
Save yourself, Bwana! Save yourself! Run! Run!
His eyes. His great white eyes.
Mrs. Woodley, I tell you true. Me, I saw it happen. Everything.
Oh, Kubani. The whole place is destroyed. The house, the trees. It's horrible.
It was the most bad day of my life.
Where did they put Ray? Mr. Park's body?
I buried him 3 days ago.
But did you notify the authorities, Kubani?
No, Mrs. Woodley. The white man, he would not understand.
Understand? What?
It is not good for the white man to see.
Tell me, Kubani.
Bwana Park's eyes.
They shone like frozen moons.
Like Charles's eyes. Ghostly white.
The spirit of the great bull of El-Haza came. No elephants here, Mrs. Woodley. No elephant for 100 years.
You have just heard Mkara, the Michael McCabe short story especially dramatized for this series by Graham Haley. Featured in tonight's cast were Chris Wiggins as Charles Woodley, Maya Anderson as Sylvia, and Eric House as Ray Park. You heard David Hemblin as Mkara and Graham Haley as Kubani, with narration by your series host, the mysterious Luther Kranst. Our recording engineer is John Jessup, with sound effects by Bill Robinson. The series story editor is Earl Toppings, with the production assistance of Nina Callahan. Nightfall is produced and directed for CBC Radio by Bill Howell. And now, here is a final word from your host.
Hello again. On next week's Nightfall, I'll be bringing you a special present all the way from India.
I wish...
Don't anybody giggle.
I wish for 200 pounds.
No! Teddy?
What is it, Dad? It moved.
What?
The monkey's paw. Cool, that. Stiff and solid as a walnut, then suddenly...
What?
It twisted in my hand.
The Monkey's Paw, a new production of the timeless horror classic, starring Eric House, Ruth Springford, and Chris Wiggins. Next week on Nightfall. Until then, careful of the edge.
Funds for the distribution of this NPR Playhouse presentation were provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. This is NPR, National Public Radio.
That's going to do it for the horror this week. I hope you enjoyed it. You can find more from Nightfall, past episodes of the horror, and more old-time radio of all varieties at relicradio.com. There's thousands of other old-time radio episodes for you to listen to there. Our Shoutcast stream is there, and our donate button. If you'd like to help support this and all of the shows and the Shoutcast stream and everything we do, visit donate.relicradio.com or click on the donate link on the website if you happen to be there. Can't do it without you. Thank you very much to those who have helped out. Thanks for joining me today. I'll be back next Saturday with a story from the Black Mass on another episode of The Horror.
Strange Tales.
RelicRadio.com presents tales of the strange and bizarre, the weird and the wicked. Stories not necessarily of the supernatural, but of the unnatural. Join us now for Strange Tales, featuring radio drama at its most mysterious and unusual. Strange Tales. Thanks for joining me this Sunday. We'll hear from The Haunting Hour this week, a syndicated series that was first heard in March of 1945, aired for 52 episodes until May of 1946. Our story today aired sometime in 1945. It's titled Till Murder Do Us Part.
No, stay where you are. Do not break the stillness of this moment, for this is a time of mystery, a time when imagination is free and moves forward swiftly, silently. This is the Haunting Hour. Till murder do us part.
Just a moment, Johnson. You think you can go on, Miss Talbot? Perhaps you'd rather wait.
No, I'm all right now.
Read what you have so far, Johnson.
My name is Nora Talbot. Exactly 5 months ago, I was employed by Marion Dunning, well-known play producer and widow of the late philanthropist Wilcox Dunning. I was to act as. That's where she broke down, sir.
Is that correct so far, Miss Talbot?
Yes. Yes, it is.
Whenever you're ready to continue.
I was to act as a confidential secretary, to live at the Dunning estate and primarily read play manuscripts for Mrs. Dunning. I liked my job because, well, I liked Marion Dunning. She was very easy to get along with, very considerate.
I hope you find your room comfortable, Nora. Just tell Tompkins, the butler, if there's anything you want.
Pleasant, easy to get along with, considerate. She made me feel more a personal friend than just an employee.
Now, look here, young lady. Stop working so late. A pretty girl like you ought to be out nights enjoying herself.
I liked Mrs. Dunning. I really was very happy there until Wallace Strieber came into the picture.
Nora, I want you to meet Wallace Strieber. He's been kind enough to let me read his new play.
And produce it. I assure you the pleasure's all mine, Nora.
I disliked him on sight. He was always talking about money.
Yes, Nora, I've always wanted the golden Midas touch. And soon I hope I'm going to have it.
He was always talking about his play.
It won't be long, Nora. I can see the blazing lights on the Broadway marquees. Talk to Death by Wallace Strieber. The Rage of New York.
Always talking about money. Always talking about his play. Yes, even always making advances toward me. And Mrs. Dunning was too infatuated with him to notice. I was far from surprised the day Mrs. Dunning told me she and Strieber were going to be married. He had mentioned to me several times that it would be a good idea. And Wallace Strieber wasn't one to abandon a good idea. He was the kind of man who would stop at nothing.
I, Wallace Strieber, take this woman to be my lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold, in sickness and in health, until death do us part.
I could see the smirk on his face as he repeated the marriage oath, and each word he said etched my hatred for him deeper and deeper. Then 5 minutes later at the reception party.
Nora! How about a kiss for the groom?
I'm sorry, Mr. Strieber, I'm busy.
Oh, now don't pull away. At a wedding, it's unfriendly not to kiss the groom. You don't want to be unfriendly, Nora, do you?
I have to see Tompkins about Mrs. Strieber's baggage.
It's just about time you paid some attention to Mr. Strieber. You're working for me now, too. Doesn't the idea please you?
As far as I'm concerned, Mr. Strieber, I'm only your wife's secretary.
Oh, come now. I think we should understand each other a little better.
I understood him perfectly. He was out for money, the Dunning pocketbook. He was out for fame, his play on Broadway. He was out for all he could get, and Marion Dunning was the only way he could get it. One night, shortly after they returned from their honeymoon trip, we were having dinner.
I know I've been talking about it for the last month. I know you don't like the play, but marry an angel, be an angel.
Oh, he's incorrigible, isn't he, Nora?
Well, let's face it. The only way to get my play on Broadway is for you to back it. Why should we let $40,000 stand in the way of my happiness? After all, if my own wife hasn't confidence in me...
I do have confidence in you, Wallace. You know that. But I don't have confidence in your playing. Talk to death is too...
It's implausible.
Yes, Nora, it's implausible.
Oh, so Nora's read the play too, has she?
Nora reads every play before I produce it. She has excellent judgment. Tell Wallace what you told me about his play, dear.
Well,
Go on, Nora.
Well...
Go on, Nora.
Well, the play's illogical. A man talking a woman into suicide because of a wager, well, it's an incredible situation.
Go on.
Well, that's all.
I see. I suppose you agree with that, Marion?
Nora's absolutely right. A man could never talk a woman into suicide in real life, Wallace. It's silly. Why don't you try writing something else, darling? I'd love to read anything else you wrote.
That's enough.
Wallace. Why, Wallace, what's the matter? Wallace!
I soon came to learn that it was dangerous to cross swords with Wallace Strieber. The very next night, Mr. Strieber sent for me.
You'll find Mr. Strieber in the library, Miss Nora.
All right, Tompkins, I'll be there in a little while.
But Mr. Strieber said you should come at once, miss.
Oh?
Begging your pardon, miss, but I'd watch my step if I were you. You seem to be quite put out about something.
Oh. Thank you, Tompkins. You wanted to see me, Mr. Strieber?
Yes. Please come in, Nora. I do hope you'll forgive my actions last night. I'm afraid I lost my temper. But your criticism of my play seemed more like a personal insult.
My criticisms of plays are always objective, Mr. Strieber. I'm sorry that you...
I understand.
I was only doing my job.
I understand, her. Nora, things could be very pleasant around here for you if you were a bit more cooperative.
Is that all you wanted, sir?
No. Sit down. Cigarette?
I don't smoke.
Nora, my wife has a very high regard for your opinion.
Yes?
Nora, how would you like to make some money? A lot of money.
What do you mean?
I mean that I'd make it worth your while if you'd convince Mrs. Strieber to back my play.
Sorry, Mr. Strieber. Not interested.
I see. Nora, I said before that things could be very pleasant here for you. I say now that things can also be very unpleasant. That's all. Good night.
He tried every way to make things unpleasant. He tried everything to turn Mrs. Strieber against me. First...
That story Nora's writing, Marion. Did you ever read Walton's Night Ride? I'd say certain sections were copied verbatim.
He accused me of plagiarizing a story I was writing, but that was only a start.
But I tell you, Marion, she was paid to recommend that play to you.
He accused me of accepting a bribe to recommend someone's play to Mrs. Strieber. He even accused me of stealing it.
Marion, my wallet's missing. I left it on the library desk, and Nora's the only one who's been in there since last night.
But, Miss Nora, Mr. Strieber's wallet was in his bureau drawer. It was there all the time.
I thought as much, Tompkins. He'd say anything to get me into trouble.
I'm terribly sorry, Miss. I told Mrs. Strieber.
Thank you anyway, Tompkins, but I'm afraid it won't make much difference. He tried everything to get rid of me, but I stayed. Mrs. Strieber wanted me to, but I could feel the difference in her manner toward me. Not so considerate, not so pleasant, not so easy to get along with now. But I stayed. I stayed to find out why Strieber was so anxious to get me out of the way.
Marion.
Just a minute, dear. I have to get this letter off tonight.
Marion.
What is it, Wallace?
After all I've told you, Nora's still around, I see.
I know. I wanted to speak to her, but you just can't accuse people of things like that without any proof.
My word should be proof enough.
Well, I'll talk to her tomorrow, Wallace.
Tomorrow, everything tomorrow. Why do you always keep putting things off? And you keep putting me off about my play.
Play? Wallace, must we talk about that again?
I'm getting a little tired of talking about it myself, Marion. Are you going to produce it or not?
I told you, Wallace. It's impossible to get away with anything like that on Broadway. A man talking a woman into suicide. Why, the critics would laugh at it.
Laugh at it, eh? So that's what you think of.
Oh, we've been over this so many times, Wallace. Your play is just incredible, that's all.
I'll show you how incredible it is.
Wallace, please.
What if I prove that a man can talk a woman into suicide? I tell you, I can prove it. Why, I could talk even you into suicide within 48 hours.
Oh, Wallace.
Well, if you're so sure it can't be done, why don't you take me up on it?
But it's too ridiculous.
Yes? I'll bet you $40,000 I can do it.
Wallace.
Don't worry, I won't let you go through it.
And if you can't make me?
If I can't, I'll never mention my play again.
Well, it's almost worth it at that. But if I'm talked into suicide, how can I pay you $40,000?
Just put it in writing, that's all. I, Marion Strieber, hereby declare in the event
of my suicide within 48 hours, that I bequeath the sum of $40,000 to my husband, Wallace Strieber.
What?
Have you got that, Nora?
Mrs. Strieber.
Oh, it isn't as bad as it sounds, Nora. Wallace is just trying to prove that his play has possibilities.
But, Mrs. Strieber...
I think it's very clever of Wallace. Of course, he's not serious about it. But you see, even if he can persuade me to think about suicide, then he's proved his point. His play isn't so incredible as we say it is.
But you can't possibly go through with it. The whole thing's fantastic.
I think I'm a better judge of that than you are, Nora.
Mrs. Strieber, you must call this off. You must. Don't you see? Don't you understand? That's why he was trying to get me out of the way. That's why he told you all those things about me. Oh, it's all so clear now.
I don't know what you're talking about, Nora.
Your husband wanted me out of the way so he could murder you for your money.
Nora!
I know it. It's true. Something awful is going to happen. I could feel it the minute he walked into this house. I know.
Nora, Wallace was right. You can pack your things and leave in the morning. Good night.
I was terrified. I knew Marion Strieber was going to be murdered, and I was powerless to save her.
Playwright Wallace Strieber married the wealthy play producer Marion Dunning, Nora Talbot was much distressed. Nora was secretary to the new Mrs. Strieber, and she felt certain that Strieber's affections extended only so far as the fat Dunning purse. Having married Marion, Wallace Strieber began vainly trying to get his wife to back his play, dealing with a man talking a woman into suicide. Nora and Mrs. Strieber thought the plot ridiculous and implausible. Strieber, infuriated, bet his wife $40,000 that he could talk her into suicide, and within 48 hours, having tried, meanwhile, everything to get Nora out of the way. Nora wouldn't leave because she was sure some disaster would come of the suicide note that Marion Strieber jokingly had dictated to her, setting forth the terms of the wager. When Nora told her employer of her fear, that Wallace Strieber planned to murder Marion after tricking her into writing the note, Marion ordered her to leave the house in the morning. Now, Nora lies in her bed, terrified of what this strange and violent night might bring.
During the night, I could see a gleam of light streaming through their window, and it seemed to be moving back and forth, back and forth. I thought my imagination was playing tricks when I heard an eerie, monotonous voice that sounded like Wallace Strieber's. I put on my robe and quietly went down to the end of the corridor near their room. I listened. It wasn't my imagination. The voice was Wallace Strieber's, eerie, monotonous, saying over and over again.
You're going to kill yourself. You're going to kill
Even
yourself.
the walls seemed to be echoing
You're going to
and
kill
whispering.
yourself. You're going to kill yourself.
The wind moaned it louder and louder and faster and faster.
You're going to kill yourself. Kill. Kill. Kill.
I found the body of Marion Strieber in her bedroom, a bullet hole through her heart. Then later...
Through her heart, Inspector? That's right, Mr. Strieber. The coroner just gave me his report a few minutes ago. The bullet went right through her heart, causing instant death.
Poor Marion.
I'm sorry to have to ask you questions at a time like this, Mr. Strieber, but...
Of course, Inspector. Anything.
There were no fingerprints on the gun except those of your wife. However, there's a question of a letter. Miss Talbot said Mrs. Strieber dictated it to her last evening. Correct, Miss Talbot?
That's right, Inspector.
Do you recognize this letter, Mr. Strieber? I, Marion Strieber, hereby declare in the event of my suicide within 48 hours that I bequeath the sum of $40,000 to my husband.
Of course I recognize it, Inspector, but it was just a joke, a bet, a wager. Surely you can't think that this...
A rather odd sort of joke, Mr. Strieber.
Well, let me explain. Marion wouldn't produce my play. She thought the idea behind it inconceivable, a man talking a woman into suicide. So I made a wager with her. I thought by infiltrating Marion's mind with the lines of the play, she'd get to like it and produce it. It's the truth, I swear.
But not the whole truth, Inspector.
I never thought she'd really do it, I tell you. It was a joke. I just read the play to her, that's all.
Inspector, Mrs. Strieber wouldn't commit suicide. She wasn't the kind of a person who would commit suicide.
Inspector, I think I'm qualified to know my wife's mental attitude and character better than her secretary.
She was a sane, strong-minded person. I tell you, she wouldn't kill herself.
Marion was depressed lately. She seemed to be brooding about something. She was morose and unhappy.
That's not true.
What are you trying to do, Nora? Pin this on me? Incidentally, I noticed your bags were packed. Perhaps to make a quick getaway? Were you perhaps leaving the scene of the crime?
I was going to leave this morning, Inspector. Mrs. Strieber asked me to because we had a disagreement about that wager. I told her something disastrous would come of it. I was right.
However, Miss Talbot, there is no additional evidence to prove the fact that Mrs. Strieber was killed by anyone but herself.
Then there won't be an inquest?
I'm so upset by this whole thing. I just can't believe it.
There's no need to bother you anymore, Mr. Strieber, or you, Miss Talbot. There will be no inquest. I am entering the verdict as suicide.
The case was closed. The verdict was suicide, and I left Dunning Mansion. But as the days passed, I knew no peace. The shot I heard that fatal night tormented me, and the voices and the peculiar circumstances which surrounded Mrs. Strieber's suicide. I knew there must be some way, some clue, something I could find that would prove to the police that Mrs. Strieber was murdered. So one night, about 3 weeks later, I decided to return to Dunning Mansion to look for additional evidence.
Oh, Miss Nora. Well, good evening.
Good evening, Tompkins.
Mr. Strieber isn't in, miss.
I left some of my things here, Tompkins. I thought I might...
Certainly. Come right in. It's nice to see you again.
Thank you, Tompkins. How is everything?
Quite different without Mrs. Strieber here. It was very sad, Miss Nora.
Yes, it was. Very.
She was a fine lady. And very fond of you, miss. If ever I can do anything for you...
That's very kind of you, Tompkins. I'd better get my things. I guess they're still upstairs. Oh, you don't have to bother, Tompkins. I know the way.
Of course, miss.
I went straight upstairs to Strieber's room. I opened the door and walked in. I felt that somehow here in this room I'd find the answer to the questions that were in my mind. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I determined to uncover every possibility. I looked everywhere, but I found nothing. I was about to leave when I noticed an old book partially hidden in the magazine rack. It was a very old volume of plays, with a bookmark at a certain page. I opened it there, and the title of the play was Talk to Death, the same as Strieber's. I thumbed through the pages. There was the suicide plot, the wager, even the letter. I, Evelyn Forbes, declare in the event of my suicide within 48 hours that I bequeath the sum of $40,000 to my husband. It was exactly the same as Strieber's play, word for word, only this had been written more than 30 years ago. The pieces of the puzzle clicked neatly together. I finally found the answer to the riddle of Marion Dunning's murder.
Well, Nora?
Wallace Strieber.
Yes. Wallace Strieber. Too presumptuous of me if I ask what you're doing here?
I just came up to read your play.
I see. You went through my things quite thoroughly.
I thought...
You thought you'd look around. And you found the book.
Yes. You plagiarized admirably, Mr. Strieber. Better than anyone I know.
Since you're so very much interested in my play...
Your play? You mean the play you copied word for word?
Too much knowledge can be very dangerous, Nora.
Also very helpful. Like finding out that you never intended to have a play produced at all. You copied this only as an excuse for murder. A frame-up to get your wife to write a suicide note so you could murder her and get away with $40,000.
Sit down, Nora. Since you're so interested in my play, we're going to read it together.
No, I'm leaving.
Nora, I said sit down. There. Better. Now we'll run through the big scene. Go ahead, Nora. You start from here.
Why are you trying to mesmerize me into suicide? I've been half out of my mind.
Go ahead, Nora.
Half out of my mind since I agreed to act as your guinea pig.
Heaven, you were trying to help me accomplish something that no psychiatrist has ever done before in medical history. To prove that a man can have enough influence over a woman to persuade her to kill herself.
Let's drop the whole thing, Sergeant.
Look, dearest, we'll end the joke right now. You write out a suicide note as a topper, and we'll all have a laugh. Here's a pen and some paper. Now, write this. I have decided to kill myself. Life no longer holds any meaning for me.
No longer holds any meaning for me.
Now sign.
Evelyn. There. That's over.
Yes, it is.
That's not the next line, Mr. Streeter.
No. The next line is, I'm going to have to kill. I'm going to have to kill you, Nora.
And then...
Easy, Miss Talbot, easy. It's all right. You don't have to say any more. I can finish it from there, Johnson.
Yes, Inspector.
Miss Talbot screamed. A shot rang out. But this time it was the killer who was killed. Tompkins, the butler, having overheard the conversation, telephoned in time for this office to apprehend Wallace Strieber and close the case.
Inspector,
It's all right, Miss Talbot. Everything's all right. Wallace Strieber is dead. He's committed his last murder.
From shadowed and stillness, mystery weaves a spell of strangest fascination, charging the mind with doubts and fears. For mystery is a strange companion, a living memory in the haunting hour.
That's our Strange Tale for this week. I hope you enjoyed it. You can find more from The Haunting Hour, Strange Tales, all the other Relic Radio podcasts, and thousands of other old-time radio episodes at relicradio.com. Our Shoutcast stream is up and running there too, and you can donate at the website or visit donate.relicradio.com. Your support keeps this show coming every week, and all the shows coming every week. I hope you give the other ones a chance too if you like this one. Thanks for joining me this week. I'll be back next Sunday with another episode of Relic Radio's Strange Tales.